Somewhere in Barcelona, a man was sitting at his desk on a quiet afternoon. He was not a criminal. He was not looking for trouble. He had just bought a new robot vacuum, the kind that drives itself around your floors, maps your rooms, and returns to its dock when it is done. He had a simple idea. He wanted to control it with his PlayStation controller instead of the app on his phone. That was it. That was the entire plan. He was a software engineer, comfortable with code, and this kind of project, a personal tinkering experiment, is exactly the sort of thing people like him do on weekends. He wrote a small program. He connected it to his vacuum, and then something unexpected happened. Not an alarm, not a warning, not a message from the company, just a number that was far too large. His screen showed him not one device, his device, but a list, a very long list, thousands of devices, thousands of homes in 24 countries. He sat with that for a moment. No one had told him this was possible. No one had told the devices either. No one realized anything had gone wrong because nothing looked broken. The DJI Romo is a robot vacuum. If you are not familiar with them, think of a small, flat disc, about the size of a dinner plate, that moves around your floor on its own, cleaning as it goes. These devices have become very popular over the past decade, but the newer ones, including the Romo, are more capable than the ones people imagined when robot vacuums first appeared. The Romo has a camera, it has a microphone. It builds a detailed map of your home as it moves through it, room by room, wall by wall, so it knows where it has been and where it still needs to go. Think of it less like a simple machine and more like a small mobile assistant that is quietly learning the layout of your house. All of that information, the maps, the camera feed, the audio, is sent to the cloud. That word, the cloud, simply means computers owned by the company, stored somewhere else, accessed over the internet. When you open the app on your phone and check on your vacuum, you are not talking directly to the machine in your living room. You are talking to those company computers, which then relay the information to you. This is how almost all smart home devices work. Your thermostat, your doorbell camera, your baby monitor, they all work this way. The device collects data. The data goes to a server. You access the server. It is a system that works well when it is set up correctly. When people buy a device like the Romo, they make a quiet assumption. They assume that when they connect to the company's servers to see their own vacuum, the server will show them only their vacuum. This seems so obvious, it barely feels worth saying. Of course, the server should only show you your device. That is the entire premise. You would make the same assumption about your bank account. When you log in, you expect to see your money, not your neighbors. The bank has what is called an access control system. It is essentially a set of rules built into the software that says, this person is allowed to see these accounts and no others. When that system works correctly, you never have to think about it. When it does not work correctly, when those rules are missing or incomplete or simply not enforced, the results can be significant. The DJI Romo system had a version of this kind of flaw. Not in the device itself, not in the camera hardware, not in the mapping software, but in the part of the system that decided who was allowed to see what. That part, the access control layer, was not working the way it should have been. And because it was a quiet background function, no user ever saw it directly. It did not show up on any screen. It did not affect how the vacuum cleaned your floors. Everything appeared to be working normally. The assumption was that the server was drawing the right lines between one user and the next. It was not. Sami Asdufal wanted to drive his robot vacuum with a PlayStation 5 controller. To do that, he needed to understand how his vacuum communicated with DJI's servers. So he used an AI coding tool, a program called Claude Code, to help him reverse engineer the app. Reverse engineering, in this context, simply means looking at how something works from the outside and figuring out what is happening on the inside. Imagine trying to understand how a vending machine works by watching it, not by reading a manual, but by observing its inputs and outputs over and over again until you understand the pattern. That is what he was doing. And in the process of doing that, he found something. Every device on DJI's network had an authentication token. A token, in this context, is like a key card. When you swipe your key card at a hotel door, the door checks. Is this card authorized for this room? If yes, it opens. The Romo's token was Asdufal's key card, proof to DJI's servers that he was a legitimate user with access to his own device. He used that token, he connected to DJI's server infrastructure, and the server let him in. But instead of showing him a single room, his room, it showed him an entire building. In 9 minutes, his scanner collected over 100,000 messages from DJI's network. He could see 6,700 devices. He had not broken anything. He had not guessed any passwords. He had not done anything that a malicious person would need sophisticated skills to replicate. He had simply used his own key card, and the door had opened to everything. Once Asdufal was connected to DJI's server network, the system treated him as though he had permission to see everything on it. This is a specific kind of security failure. It is not about a virus. It is not about someone stealing data. It is about a system that never properly defined the boundary between one user's data and another's. Think of it like a filing cabinet in a shared office. Each employee should only be able to open their own drawer. But if someone accidentally wired all the drawers to the same lock, then any key opens any drawer. Asdufal's token was the key. The drawers were every Romo in the world. From Barcelona, he could locate a specific vacuum by its serial number. He could see its real-time cleaning status, its battery level, where it was in the home, how much it had cleaned. He could generate a detailed floor plan of that home, an accurate two-dimensional map of the rooms, built by the vacuum as it moved through the space. He could access the live camera feed. He could activate the microphone. He could, in his own words, see inside strangers' homes. He demonstrated this to a journalist at The Verge, taking control of a colleague's Romo simply by knowing its 14-digit serial number. He was able to watch it move. He was able to see through its camera. It is important to note something clearly. Asdufal did not exploit a sophisticated vulnerability. He did not use specialized hacking tools. The underlying communications between the device and the server were encrypted, meaning the data being sent was scrambled, so it could not be easily read in transit. But encryption only protects data while it is traveling. Once Asdufal was connected, legitimately with his own valid credentials, the system did not ask whether he was supposed to see other users' data. It simply showed it to him. The vacuums kept cleaning, the maps kept updating, the app kept working. No one received a notification, no alarm was triggered, no error appeared. This is one of the quieter truths about security failures in connected systems. The most significant ones often do not announce themselves. They do not crash the system. They do not slow anything down. The device in someone's living room in Houston was still cleaning perfectly. The device in an apartment in Frankfurt was still returning to its dock on schedule. The users had no reason to check anything. Why would they? From their perspective, everything was functioning exactly as intended. This is why the failure was not caught internally before Asdufal stumbled into it. The server was not misbehaving. It was doing exactly what it was programmed to do. It was accepting authenticated connections. It was responding to valid requests. It was delivering data to whoever asked. The problem was not in the server's behavior. The problem was in the assumption that only the right people would ever ask. Security experts have a phrase for this kind of gap. They call it a permissions issue, a situation where the rules about who can access what have either not been written carefully enough or not been enforced at all. The system did not crash. That is precisely why it was dangerous. Asdufal's first reaction when he saw the scale of what he had accessed was not excitement. By his own account, it was discomfort. He was looking at a list of thousands of devices that had never consented to being on his screen. He contacted The Verge, a technology news publication, and demonstrated what he had found. The demonstration was straightforward. He identified a Romo owned by a Verge staff member using only the device's serial number. He connected to it remotely. He confirmed its location and cleaning status. He generated its home's floor plan. The journalist watched it happen in real time from a different location. The discovery did not come from a security audit. It did not come from DJI's own testing. It came from a person who was simply trying to make his weekend project work and who had enough technical understanding to recognize what he was looking at when the unexpected appeared on his screen. That is worth sitting with for a moment. The flaw had existed in a deployed product. It was present in thousands of active devices. It was not caught by the system itself. It was caught by a user, by accident, while doing something entirely unrelated. When The Verge contacted DJI for comment, the company confirmed that it was already aware of the issue and that remediation efforts were underway. Within days of the story being published, Asdufal reported that his scanner could no longer connect to any device on the network, not even his own. DJI had closed the access. DJI spokesperson Daisy Kong issued a statement confirming the issue had been resolved, adding that the company upholds rigorous standards for data privacy and security and would continue implementing further security enhancements. Shortly after the story broke, the DJI Romo appeared to have been removed from DJI's online store. DJI did not publicly detail the specific technical steps taken to correct the permission structure. The company did not announce a formal third-party security audit in the immediate aftermath. There has been no indication that any of the exposed data was accessed with malicious intent during the period the flaw existed, but it is not possible to confirm, after the fact, whether anyone else had noticed the same flaw before Asdufal did. That remains an open question, one the available information does not answer. The system trusted that only the right people would connect to it. That is the sentence worth sitting with. Not that the system was poorly built in every respect, not that everyone involved was careless, but that the system was designed with an assumption built into it, and that assumption was never properly tested. The assumption was, a valid key belongs to a valid user, and a valid user should see only what is theirs. The system enforced the first part. It never enforced the second. This is a pattern that appears in different forms across many connected technologies. Systems are built to verify identity. They are less consistently built to limit what a verified identity can reach. The distinction matters. Knowing who you are is not the same as knowing what you are allowed to see. For anyone who owns a device in their home that connects to the internet, a camera, a vacuum, a speaker, a thermostat, the relevant question is not just, is this device secure? The more precise question is, do I know who, besides me, can access what this device collects? In most cases, the answer is not entirely. That is not cause for alarm. It is cause for attention. Sami Asdoufel's vacuum is still in his apartment in Barcelona. Presumably, it still cleans his floors. Presumably, the flaw has been corrected. The 6,700 homes that were briefly visible to a stranger are, as far as anyone can confirm, no longer visible to anyone but their owners. Things returned to normal, but the incident left something worth remembering. The devices in our homes are increasingly capable. They learn the layout of our rooms. They listen for our voices. They watch through cameras small enough to fit into a disc the size of a dinner plate. They do this because we asked them to. And they send what they learn to servers we will never see, managed by companies we largely trust by default. That trust is not unreasonable, but it is trust in a system, and systems have assumptions built into them. Sometimes those assumptions are correct. Sometimes they are not. The system did not fail because it was sophisticated. It failed because we trusted it to understand something it had never been told.